ओम हरिः ओम। आचार्याः गुरुं प्रार्थ्य गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुदेवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। सद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। मम गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। ओं गणानां त्वा गणपतिं ववामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत आनशृण्वन्नोतिभिस्सीदशादनम्। ओं श्री महावल्लभगणपतये नमः। सप्रदसभां मे गोपाय ये च सभ्याः सभासदः तानिन्द्रियावतः कुरु सर्वमायुरुपासदा। अहे पुत्र्यमन्द्रं मे गोपाय यमृषयस्त्रैभिता विदुः रजस्सामानि यजूगुंषि साहि श्रीरमृता सताम्। ओं ध्रुवन्दे राजा वरुणो ध्रुवं देवो बृहस्पतिः ध्रुवं दयन्द्रश्चाग्निश्च राष्ट्रं धारयताम्। ध्रुवम् आचार्याः जम्य अक्षदानादाय प्राणानायम्य शुक्ल ओं यस्यद्विरदवक्त्रार्त्या पारिशक्त्या परशतं विघ्नं निघ्नन्ति शततं विश्वक्षेणं तमाश्रये। तदेव लग्नं सुदिनं तदेव ताराफलं चन्द्रफलं तदेव विद्याफलं देवफलं तदेव लक्ष्मीपतेः अङ्घ्रियुगं स्मरामि। अद्य करिष्यमाणस्य कर्मणः निर्विघ्नेन परिसमाप्त्यर्थम् आदौ श्री महावल्लभगणपति पूजां करिष्ये। आदौ श्री विश्वक्षेण पूजां करिष्ये। अपवुपस्पृश्य कलशस्य मुखे विष्णुः कंठे रुद्रशमाश्रिताः मूले तत्र स्थितो ब्रह्मा मध्ये मातृगणा स्मृताः। गंगे जयमुने जैव गोदावरी सरस्वती नर्मदे सिन्धु कावेरी जलेऽस्मिन् सन्निधिं कुरु। सप्तनदिभ्यो नमः। तज्जलेन पूजाद्रव्याणि च आत्मानं च सम्प्रोक्ष्य सर्वद्रव्याणि च सम्प्रोक्ष्य कुम्भं बिम्बं सम्प्रोक्ष्य आचार्याः महावल्लभगणपते नमः ध्यायामि। सहित विश्वक्षेण प्रार्थनां कुर्यात्। करिष्ये गणानां त्वा गणपतिं ववामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत आनशृण्वन्नोतिभिस्सीदशादनम्। ओं महावल्लभगणपतये नमः। ओं एकदन्ताय विद्महे वक्रतुण्डाय धीमहि तन्नो दन्ती प्रचोदयात्। तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे वेत्रहस्ताय धीमहि तन्नः शान्तप्रचोदयात्। अस्मिन् बिम्बे ओं भूर्भुवस्सुवः महागणपतिं ध्यायामि आवाहयामि। महागणपते नमः। आचनं समर्पयामि अर्घ्यं समर्पयामि पाद्यं समर्पयामि आचमनं समर्पयामि स्नानं समर्पयामि स्नानानन्तराचमनं समर्पयामि अर्घ्यं समर्पयामि आचमनीयं समर्पयामि वस्त्रार्थम् अक्षतान् समर्पयामि उपवीतार्थम् अक्षतान् समर्पयामि। सपरिवारसहित विश्वक्षेण महावल्लभगणपते नमः। गन्धां धारयामि गन्धस्योपरि हरिद्रा कुङ्कुमं समर्पयामि पुष्पैः पूजयामि। ओं महावल्लभगणपतये नमः। ओं महावल्लभगणपत्यासनाय नमः। ओं महावल्लभगणपतिमूर्तये नमः। ओं महावल्लभगणपतये नमः। ओं विश्वक्षेणाय नमः। ओं श्रीमते नमः। ओं सूत्रपतिनाथाय नमः। ओं वेत्रभानये नमः। ओं प्रभाकरासमप्रभाय नमः। ओं विश्वरक्षपराय नमः। ओं ऋषिकेशाय नमः। ओं हरिभक्त्राय नमः। ओं सूत्रवती समेत विश्वक्षेणाय नमः। धूपमाग्रापयामि। ओं धूरशिधूर्वधूर्वन्तं धूर्वतं जोऽस्मान् धूर्वधितं धूर्भजं भजं धूर्वामः। सूत्रवती समेत विश्वक्षेणमूर्ते नमः। धूपमाग्रापयामि। महागणपते नमः। धूपमाग्रा दीपं दर्शयामि धूपः दीपानन्तरमाचमनं समर्पयामि। भूर्भुवस्सुवः अमृते अमृतानने अमृतोद्भवे अमृतवर्षिणि अमृतं श्रावय श्रावय स्वाहा विशेषबलं कदली अमृतबलं काश्मीरबलं चूतबलं निवेदयामि महागणपतेन विश्वक्षेणाय नमः सुरभिमुद्रां समर्प्य एकदन्ताय विद्महे वक्रतुण्डाय धीमहि तन्नो दन्ती प्रचोदयात् तत्पुरुषाय विद्महे वेत्रहस्ताय धीमहि तन्नः शान्तप्रचोदयात् आचार्याः अक्षदानाथाय वक्रतुण्डभागाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभ निर्विघ्नं गुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा महागणपते नमः विश्वक्षेणाय नमः अनन्तकोटि प्रार्थनाञ्जलिं समर्पयामि अक्षदानाथाय हरिः ओं तत्सद् श्री गोविंद गोविंद अद्य श्री भगवतः ऐन्द्रघण्टे रमणगवर्षे क्रौञ्चदीपे समस्त हरिहर ब्राह्मण गुरुसन्निधौ सहाब्देऽस्मिन् वर्धमाने व्यवहारिके प्रभवादि षष्ठी संवत्सराणां मध्ये इदानीं शुभकृतनाम संवत्सरे उत्तर दक्षिणायने वर्ष ऋतौ सिंहमासे शुक्लपक्ष पौर्णमास्यां शुभदितो वासरः भृगुवार संयुक्तायां नक्षत्राः शतभिषक् नक्षत्र संयुक्तायां शुभनक्षत्र शुभयोग शुभकरण एवं गुण विशेषेण विशिष्टायामस्यां वर्धमानायाम् अस्यां शुभदितो श्री भगवदाज्ञया भगवत्कैङ्कर्यरूपं भगवद्भागवताचार्याणां दिव्यसन्निधौ विराजमानस्य अस्य देवदेवोत्तमस्य देवता सार्वभौमस्य अखिलाण्डकोटि ब्रह्माण्डनायकस्य परात्पर वासुदेवस्य आश्रित जनपरिपालकस्य अपार कारुण्य सौजल्य वात्सल्य ऐश्वर्य सौंदर्य महोदतेः जगत्कुटुम्बिनः जगत्रक्षणार्थम् अवतीर्णस्य श्री रमादेव्या समेत वीरवेंकट सत्यनारायण स्वामी प्रसाद सिद्धर्थं शुक्लपक्ष विशेष पौर्णमास्यां विशेषतः श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामी व्रतपूजांगकर्मणि सर्वेषां भक्तमहाजनानाम् अस्मिन् महावल्लभ गणपति दिव्य सन्निधौ आगतानाम् अनागतानां सर्वेषां भक्तमहाजनानां क्षेमस्थैर्य वीर्य विजय आयुरारोग्यैश्वर्याणाम् अभिवृद्ध्यर्थम् अनेक गृहे अट्टलक्ष्मी नित्य निवास सिद्धर्थं धर्मार्थकाममोक्ष चतुर्विध फल पुरुषार्थ सिद्धर्थं जाग्रत स्वप्न सुषुप्ति अवस्थात्रय मनोभाग्याय समजने तत्तूष पीठा परिहारार्थम् आध्यात्मिकादिदैविक आदि भौतिक तापत्रयादि समस्त कूटि दोष निवारणार्थं लोहक्षेमार्थ लोह कल्याणार्थं लोके नगरे स्थले विद्वन् महाजनानां पशुपक्षिजावरजंगमस्थानेन भक्त महाजनानां क्षेमारोग्यदा सिद्धर्थम् उपेयकर्तॄणां क्षेमारोग्यदा सिद्धर्थं श्री रमादेव्या समेत वीरवेंकट सत्यनारायण स्वामी प्रसाद सिद्धर्थं सर्वेषां भक्त महाजनानां सकलविध सन्मांगल्य प्राप्त्यर्थम् अप्राप्त लक्ष्मी प्राप्त्यर्थं प्राप्त लक्ष्मी स्थिरकाल संरक्षणार्थं धनगणक वस्तुवाहनादि अभिवृद्ध्यर्थम् आयुरारोग्यैश्वर्य प्राप्त्यर्थं पादादिकेशपर्यन्तं केशादिपादपर्यन्तं सकल रोग निवारण सिद्धर्थं श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामी अनुग्रह प्रसाद सिद्धर्थम् आचार्य मुखेन श्री सत्यनारायण व्रतपूजां कर्म करिष्ये अपवस्त्रस्य आवाहनादि सूत्रवधि समेत विश्वक्षेण महावल्लभ गणपते नमः समस्तोपचारां समर्पयामि सर्वः वक्रतुण्डभागाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं गुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा विश्वक्षेण महागणपते नमः यदा स्थानं प्रतिष्ठापयामि शोभनार्थे क्षेमाय पुनरागमनाय च विश्वक्षेण महागणपति प्रसाद सिद्धर्थं पूर्वोक्त संकल्प प्रकारेण श्री आदित्यादि नवग्रह देवता परिपूर्ण अनुग्रह प्रसाद सिद्धर्थं श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामी व्रतपूजांगकर्मणि आदित्यादि नवग्रह दोष निवारण सिद्धि पूर्वे अनेन भक्त महाजनानां जातकवशात् आदिव्यादि नवानां ग्रहाणां नवग्रह दोष निवारण सिद्धर्थं नवग्रह आराधनं करिष्ये अस्मिन् नवग्रह मंडले मध्ये आदित्यग्रहं ध्यायामि आदित्यग्रहम् आवाहयामि जपाकुटुम संकाशं काश्यपेयं महद्दितिं तमोरिं सर्वभावग्नं प्रणतोष्मि दिवाकरम् अश्वध्वजाय विद्महे पद्महस्ताय धीमहि तन्नः सूर्यः प्रचोदयात् रक्तवस्त्रं रक्तवर्णं रक्तगन्धं रक्तपुष्पं रक्तगन्धानुलेपितं मेरोः प्रदक्षिणे कुर्वाणं शाङ्गाय सायुधाय सपरिवाराय श्री आदित्यग्रहं ध्यायामि आवाहयामि सर्वोपचारैः समर्पयामि सूर्यस्य आग्नेयदिग्भागे चन्द्राय नमः ददिशङ्गदुषारापं क्षीरोधार्णवसम्भवं नमामि सजं सोमं सम्भोर्मकुटभूषणं निशाकराय विद्महे कलानाथाय धीमहि तन्नश्चन्द्र प्रचोदयात्। ओम श्वेतवर्णं श्वेतवस्त्रं श्वेतगन्धं श्वेतपुष्पं श्वेतचन्दानुलेपितं दिव्यमेरोः प्रदक्षिणकुर्बाणं शाङ्काय सायुधाय सशक्तये शबरिवाराय चन्द्रग्रहं ध्यायामि आवाहयामि अर्घ्यं दत्त्वा सूर्यस्य दक्षिणदिग्भागे अंगारहाय नमः अंगारहमूर्तये नमः धरणीगर्भसम्भूतं विद्युत्कान्तिसन्निभं कुमारं शक्तिहस्तं च मङ्गलं प्रणमाम्यहम् अंगारकाय विद्महे भूमिबालाय धीमहि तन्नो भौम प्रचोदयात्। रक्तवस्त्रं रक्तवर्णं रक्तवस्त्रं रक्तगन्धं रक्तपुष्पं रक्तगन्धानुलेपितं दिव्यमेरु प्रदक्षिणे कुर्वाणं साङ्गाय सायुधाय सशक्तये शबरिवाराय अंगारहं ध्यायामि अंगारहमावाहयामि अर्घ्यं दत्त्वा सूर्यस्य ऐशान्यदिग्भागे बुधाय नमः प्रियङ्गुकलिकाश्यामं रूपेण प्रतिमं बुधं सौम्यं सौम्यगुणो भेदं तं बुधं प्रणमाम्यहम्। ओम बुधग्रहाय विद्महे इन्दुपुत्राय धीमहि तन्नः सौम्य प्रचोदयात्। ओम श्यामगन्धं ओम श्यामवस्त्रं श्यामगन्धं श्यामपुष्पं श्यामगन्धानुलेपितं दिव्यमेरु प्रदक्षिणे कुर्वाणं साङ्काय सायुधाय सशक्तये शबरिवाराय बुधं ध्यायामि बुधमावाहयामि अर्घ्यं दत्त्वा सूर्यस्य उत्तरदिग्भागे गुरवे नमः देवानां च ऋषीणां च गुरुं काञ्चनसन्निभं बुद्धिभूतं त्रिलोकेशं तन्नमामि बृहस्पतिं सुराचार्याय विद्महे सुरश्रेष्ठाय धीमहि तन्नो गुरुः प्रचोदयात्। ओम कनकवर्णं कनकवस्त्रं कनकगन्धं कनकपुष्पं कनकगन्धानुलेपितं दिव्यमेरु प्रदक्षिणे कुर्वाणं शाङ्काय सायुधाय शक्तेशपरिवाराय गुरुं ध्यायामि गुरुमावाहयामि अर्घ्यं दत्त्वा सूर्यस्य पूर्वदिग्भागे शुक्राय नमः हिमकुन्दवृणालापं दैत्यानां परमं गुरुं सर्वशास्त्रप्रवक्तारं भार्गवं प्रणमाम्यहम्। शुक्राय नमः रजदापाय विद्महे बृहसुताय धीमहि तन्नः शुक्र प्रचोदयात्। श्वेतवर्णं श्वेतवस्त्रं श्वेतगन्धं श्वेतपुष्पं श्वेतगन्धानुलेपितं दिव्यमेरु प्रदक्षिणे कुर्वाणं शाङ्गाय सायुधाय शबरिवाराय शुक्रं ध्यायामि शुक्रमावाहयामि अर्घ्यं दत्त्वा सूर्यस्य पश्चिमदिग्भागे शनैश्चराय नमः नीलाञ्जनसमापाठं रविपुत्रं यमाग्रजं छायामार्ताण्डसम्भूतं तन्नमामि शनैश्चरं काकध्वजाय विद्महे खड्गहस्ताय धीमहि तन्नो मन्दप्रचोदयात्। कृष्णवर्णं कृष्णवस्त्रं कृष्णगन्धं कृष्णपुष्पं कृष्णगन्धानुलेपितं दिव्यमेरु प्रदक्षिणे कुर्वाणं साङ्काय सायुधाय सशक्तये शबरिवाराय शनैश्चराय नमः शनैश्चरं ध्यायामि आवाहयामि अर्घ्यं दत्त्वा सूर्यस्य नैऋती दिग्भागे राघवे नमः अर्धगायं महावीर्यं चन्द्रादित्यविमर्दनं सिंहिकागर्भसम्भूतं तं राहुं प्रणमाम्यहम्। सूगदन्ताय विद्महे उग्ररूपाय धीमहि तन्नो राहुः प्रचोदयात्। धूम्रवर्णं धूम्रवस्त्रं धूम्रगन्धं धूम्रपुष्पं धूम्रगन्धानुलेपितं दिव्यमेरु प्रदक्षिणे कुर्वाणं शाङ्गाय सायुधाय सशक्तये शबरिवाराय राहुं ध्यायामि राहुमावाहयामि अर्घ्यं दत्त्वा सूर्यस्य वायोर्दिग्भागे केतवे नमः फलासपुष्पसङ्गाशं तारका ग्रहमस्तकं रौद्रं रौद्रात्मकं घोरं तं केतुं प्रणमाम्यहम्। चित्रवर्णाय विद्महे सर्परूपाय धीमहि तन्नः केतुः प्रचोदयात्। ओम चित्रवर्णं चित्रवस्त्रं चित्रगन्धं चित्रपुष्पं चित्रगन्धानुलेपितं दिव्यमेरु प्रदक्षिणे कुर्वाणं शाङ्गाय सायुधाय सशक्तये शबरिवाराय केतुं ध्यायामि केतुमावाहयामि अर्घ्यं दत्त्वा महागणपतिं पंचब्रह्मासनान् महागणपतिं ध्यायामि महागणपतिम् आवाहयामि अर्घ्यं दत्त्वा दुर्गादेवीं ध्यायामि आवाहयामि अर्घ्यं दत्त्वा वास्तुपुरुषं ध्यायामि आवाहयामि अर्घ्यं दत्त्वा अभयङ्करं ध्यायामि आवाहयामि अर्घ्यं दत्त्वा क्षेत्रपालं ध्यायामि आवाहयामि अर्घ्यं दत्त्वा ओम गन्धद्वारां दुरादृढा नित्यपुट्टाङ्गिरेषिणीं ईश्वरीं सर्वभूतानां तामिहोपक्वये श्रियम्। ओम श्रीं आवाहयामि लक्ष्मीनारायणं ध्यायामि आवाहयामि वाणी हिरण्यगर्भाभ्याम् आवाहयामि ध्यायामि अर्घ्यं दत्त्वा उमामहेश्वराभ्याम् आवाहयामि अर्घ्यं दत्त्वा ஓம் இந்திராய நமः, ஓம் அக்னயே நமः, ஓ யமாய நமः, ஓ நிருதயே நமः, ஓ வருணாய நமः, ஓ வாயவே நமः, ஓம் குபேராய நமः, ஓ ஈஷானாய நமः, அஷ்டதிக்பாலகாசனாய நமः ध्यायामि आवाहयामि पञ्चलोकबालकाय नमः ध्यायामि आवाहयामि सकल आवरण आवाहन देवताभ्यो नमः धूपमाघ्रापयामि ओम दूरशिदूर्वधूर्वन्तं धूर्वदं जोऽस्मान् धूर्वदिदं धूर्वयं वयं धूर्वमः धूपमाग्रापयामि उद्दीप्यस्वजातवेदो भग्नं निरृधिं मम पशुगिस्तमख्यमावह जीवनं च दिशो दिश दीपं दर्शयामि धूपदीपानन्दरम् आचमनं समर्पयामि भूर्भुवस्वः विशेषफलं निवेदयामि निवेद्यानन्दरम् आचमनं समर्पयामि आदित्याय च सोमाय मंगलाय बुधाय च गुरुशुक्रशनेभ्यश्च राघवे केधवे नमः आदित्यादि नवग्रह देवताभ्यो नमः अनन्तकोटि प्रार्थनाञ्जलिं समर्पयामि प्रत्यक्षदीपं दर्शयामि ओम सर्वस्याब्दे सर्वस्य जब्दे सर्वमेव देनाप्नोति सर्वं जयति आचार्याः कलशपूजां कृत्वा विघ्नो विष्णोरराडमसि विष्णोः पृष्ठमसि विष्णोश्चप्त्रेः स्तो विष्णोस्यूरसि विष्णोर्ध्रुवमसि वैष्णवमसि विष्णवे त्वा गन्धद्वारां दुरादर्शा नित्यपुट्टाङ्गिरीषिणी ईश्वरीगं सर्वभूतानां दामिहो भक्मये श्रियम् आपो वा इदगं सर्वं विश्वभूतान्यापप्राणा वा शव आपो नमापो प्रथमापः सम्राडापो विराडापश्वराडापश्चन्दागिष्यापो ज्योतिगिष्यापो यजोगिष्यापः सद्यमापः सर्वा देवता आपो भूर्भुवस्सु वरा भवो देवस्य त्वा सविदप्रसवे अश्विनोर्बाहुभ्यां पूष्णोस्ताभ्याम् ॐ आं ह्रीं क्रूं क्रूं ह्रीं आं अं यं रं लं वं सं शं शं सं हं लं क्षं अह हंसः सगिदावाहितो भव स्थापितो भव सन्निधो भव सन्निरुद्धो भव अवगुण्डितो भव सुप्रीतो भव सुप्रसन्नो भव स्वामिन् प्रसीद प्रसीद स्वामिन् सर्वजगन्नाथ यावत् पूजावसानकं तावत् त्वं प्रीतिभावेन कुम्भेऽस्मिन् सन्निधिं गुरु श्रीरमादेव्या समेत सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः प्राणप्रतिष्ठा मुहूर्त शुभमुहूर्तोऽस्तु द्वारपूजा पूर्वद्वारे ओम जयाजय नमः विजयाजय नमः दक्षिणद्वारे नंदाजय नमः सुनंदाजय नमः पश्चिमद्वारे बलाजय नमः प्रबलाजय नमः उत्तरद्वारे कुमुदाजय नमः कुमुदाक्षै नमः नीलवर्णं पीतवस्त्रं ध्यायेत् श्रीवत्सभूषितं गोविन्दं गोकुलानन्दं ब्रह्माद्यै रविपूजितं श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः ध्यायामि आवाहयामि ओम आवाहये गुणातीतं सत्यनारायण प्रभुं लोकनाथं त्रिलोकेशं कौस्तुभाभरणं हरिं श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः आवाहयामि क्षीराब्धिशेषसेन साजिने परमात्मने धर्मादिचरणं वेदैः धृतं रत्नासनं परं श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः आसनं समर्पयामि व्यक्ताव्यक्तस्वरूपाय ऋषिकपदये नमः मया निवेदितो भक्त्या अर्घ्योऽयं प्रतिगृह्यत श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः अर्घ्यं समर्पयामि नारायण नमस्तेस्तु नरकार्णवतारकः पाद्यं गृहाण देवेश मम सौख्यं विवर्तय श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः पाद्यं समर्पयामि मन्दाकिन्यास्तु यद्भारी सर्वाभाव हरं शुभं ददितं कल्पितं देव सम्यगा संयतां ध्वज श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः आसनं समर्पयामि आजमनीयं समर्पयामि स्नानं पञ्चामृतैर्देव गृहाण पुरुषोत्तम अनादनाद सर्वज्ञ कीर्वाण प्रणतिप्रिय श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः स्नापयामि वेदसूक्त समायुक्तं यज्ञसाम समन्विते सर्ववर्ण प्रदे देव वाससी प्रतिगृह्यता श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः वस्त्रयुग्मं समर्पयामि ब्रह्म विष्णु महेश्वरस्य निर्मितं ब्रह्मसूत्रकं तेन यज्ञोपवीतेन प्रियदां कमलापतिः सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः यज्ञोपवीतं समर्पयामि श्रीकण्ठं चन्दनं दिव्यं गन्धाढ्यं सुमनोहरं विलेपनं सुरश्रेष्ठं चन्दनं प्रीतिगृह्यता श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः गन्धां धारयामि गन्धशोभरे हरिद्रा कुङ्कुमं समर्पयामि मल्लिकादिसुगन्धी च मलाध्यानित वै प्रभो मया हृदानि भोजार्थं पुष्पाणि प्रतिगृह्यतां श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः पुष्पं समर्पयामि अथ अंगभूजां करिष्ये ओम सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः पादौ पूजयामि ओम शेषशायिने नमः कुल्पौ पूजयामि ओम कालस्वरूपिणे नमः जंगे पूजयामि ओम विश्वरूपाय नमः जानुनी पूजयामि ओम जगन्नाथाय नमः गुह्यं पूजयामि ओम कमलनाथाय नमः नाभिं पूजयामि ओम जगद्वृक्षजे नमः कुक्षिं पूजयामि ओम लक्ष्मी विलसत्पक्षसे नमः वक्षस्थलं पूजयामि ओम चक्रादिहस्ताय नमः हस्तान् पूजयामि ओम चतुर्भागवे नमः बाहून् पूजयामि ओम श्रीकण्ठाय नमः कंठं पूजयामि ओम चंद्रमुखाय नमः मुखं पूजयामि ओम सत्यवाजसे नमः वक्त्रं पूजयामि ओम श्रीचाय नमः नासिकां पूजयामि ओम रवीन्द्रलोचनाय नमः नेत्रे पूजयामि ओम दिक्कस्त्रे नमः स्तोत्रे पूजयामि ओम सर्वव्यापिने नमः शिरः पूजयामि ओम श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः सर्वांगं पूजयामि अथ अंगपूजां समर्पयामि अष्टोत्तर शतनामार्चन पूजां करिष्ये ओम सत्यदेवाय नमः ओम सत्यात्मने नमः ओम सत्यभूताय नमः ओम सत्यपुरुषाय नमः ओम सत्यनाथाय नमः ओम सत्यसाक्षिणे नमः ओम सत्ययोगाय नमः ओम सत्यज्ञानाय नमः ओम सत्यज्ञानप्रियाय नमः ओम सत्यनिधये नमः ओम सत्यसंभवाय नमः ओम सत्यप्रभवे नमः ओम सत्येश्वराय नमः ओम सत्यगामिने नमः ओम सत्यपवित्राय नमः ओम सत्यमंगलाय नमः ओम सत्यकल्पाय नमः ओम सत्यप्रजापतये नमः ओम सत्यविक्रमाय नमः ओम सत्यसिद्धाय नमः ओम सत्य अच्युताय नमः ओम सत्यवीराय नमः ओम सत्यभूताय नमः ओम सत्यधर्माय नमः ओम सत्यग्रजाय नमः ओम सत्यसंदुष्टाय नमः ओम सत्यवराहाय नमः ओम सत्यपारायणाय नमः ओम सत्यपूर्णाय नमः ओम सत्यभूषदाय नमः ओम सत्यशाश्वताय नमः ओम सत्यप्रवर्तनाय नमः ओम सत्यविभवे नमः ओम सत्यज्येष्ठाय नमः ओम सत्यश्रेष्ठाय नमः ओम सत्यविक्रमिणे नमः ओम सत्यधन्विने नमः ओम सत्यमेधाय नमः ओम सत्यधीराय नमः ओम सत्यकृतवे नमः ओम सत्यकलाय नमः ओम सत्यवत्सलाय नमः ओम सत्यवासवे नमः ओम सत्यमोगाय नमः ओम सत्यरुद्राय नमः ओम सत्यब्रह्मणे नमः ओम सत्यअमृताय नमः ओम सत्यवेदांगाय नमः ओम सत्यचतुरात्मने नमः ओम सत्यभोक्त्रे नमः ओम सत्यसुजये नमः ओम सत्यर्चिताय नमः ओम सत्येन्द्रियाय नमः ओम सत्यसंगाय नमः ओम सत्यस्वर्गाय नमः ओम सत्यनियमाय नमः ओम सत्यवेदाय नमः ओम सत्यवेद्याय नमः सत्यपयूषाय नमः ओम सत्यमायाय नमः ओम सत्यमोहाय नमः ओम सत्यसुरनन्दाय नमः ओम सत्यसागराय नमः ओम सत्यतपसे नमः ओम सत्यसिंहाय नमः ओम सत्यमृगाय नमः ओम सत्यलोकबालकाय नमः ओम सत्यस्थिराय नमः ओम सत्यौषधाय नमः ओम सत्यदिक्पालकाय नमः ओम सत्यधनुर्धराय नमः ओम सत्यभुजाय नमः ओम सत्यवाक्याय नमः ओम सत्यगुरवे नमः ओम सत्यजायाय नमः ओम सत्यसाक्षिणे नमः ओम सत्यसम्प्रदाय नमः ओम सत्यसम्प्रदाय नमः ओम सत्यवन्नजे नमः ओम सत्यवायवे नमः ओम सत्यशिक्षराय नमः ओम सत्यानन्दाय नमः ओम सत्यनीरजाय नमः ओम सत्यश्रीपाताय नमः ओम सत्यगुह्याय नमः ओम सत्योदराय नमः ओम सत्यहृदयाय नमः ओम सत्यकमलाय नमः ओम सत्यनालाय नमः ओम सत्यहस्ताय नमः ओम सत्यभागवे नमः ओम सत्यजिह्वाय नमः ओम सत्यमुख्याय नमः ओम सत्यदंष्ट्राय नमः ओम सत्यनासिकाय नमः ओम सत्यस्तोत्रे नमः ओम सत्यचक्षुषे नमः ओम सत्यशिरसे नमः ओम सत्यमकुडाय नमः ओम सत्याम्बराय नमः ओम सत्य आभरणाय नमः सत्य आयुधाय नमः ओम सत्यश्रीवल्लभाय नमः ओम सत्यगुप्ताय नमः ओम सत्यत्रिदाय नमः ओम सत्यभाम रताय नमः ओम सत्यग्रहरूपिणे नमः ओम सत्यनारायण स्वामी देवताय नमः नानाविध परिमल पत्रपुष्पार्चनं समर्पयामि अथ धूपः ओम सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः दूरशदूर्वदूर्वन्दं दूर्वधं योऽस्मान् दूर्वदिदं दूर्वजं वजं दूर्वामः धूपमाग्रापयामि उद्दीप्य स्वजातवेदो भग्नं निरृधिं मम पशुगिस्तमख्यमावह जीवनं च दिशो दिश दीपं दर्शयामि निवेद्यानन्दरम् आज ओम भूर्भुवस्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात् देवसविधप्रदुवः सत्यं तत्त्वेन परिषिञ्चामि प्राणाय स्वाहा अपानाय स्वाहा ध्यानाय स्वाहा उदानाय स्वाहा समानाय स्वाहा ब्रह्मणे स्वाहा ब्रह्मणिमात्मामृतत्वाय विशेषान्नं निवेदयामि अमृते अमृतारणे अमृतोद्भवे अमृतपरिषिणी अमृतं प्राणय प्राणय स्वाहा नालिगेरगण्डं कदलीफलं ताम्बूलं कर्पूरताम्बूलं निवेदयामि आचमनं समर्पयामि अर्घ्यं समर्पयामि ओम नारायणाय विद्महे वासुदेवाय धीमहि तन्नो विष्णु प्रचोदयात् सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः दिव्यमंगल ज्योतिः बोलो श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामी की जय योपां पुष्पं वेद पुष्पवान् प्रजावान् विषमान् भवति चन्द्रभावा पुष्पवान् प्रजावान् विषमान् भवति य एवं वेद योपामायतनं वेद आयतनवान् भवति राजाधिराजाय प्रसज्ञसाजिने नमो वयं वै श्रवणाय गुरुमहे समे कामान् कामकामाय मह्यं कामेश्वरो वै श्रवणो ददातु कुबेराय वै श्रवणाय महाराजाय नमः ओम तद्ब्रह्म ओम तद्वायुः ओम तदात्मा ओम तत्सत्यम ओम तत्सर्वम ओम तत्पुरोर्नमः अंधश्चरति भूतेषु गुहायां विश्वमूर्तिषु त्वं यज्ञस्त्वं षट्कारस्त्वम् इन्द्रस्त्वं रुद्रस्त्वं विष्णुत्वं प्रजापतिः त्वं ददामः भोज्योतिरसोमृतं ब्रह्म ओम नारायणाय विद्महे वासुदेवाय धीमहि तन्नो विष्णुः प्रचोदयात् देव्यै च विद्महे विष्णुपत्नी च धीमहि तन्नो लक्ष्मी प्रचोदयात् रमादेवी सहित सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः वेदोक्तमन्त्रपुष्पाञ्जलिं समर्पयामि यानि कानि च पापानि जन्मान्तरकृतानि च तानि तानि विनश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणं पदे पदे प्रकृष्टपावनाशाय प्रकृष्टफलसिद्धये प्रदक्षिणं करोमि त्वा प्रसीद जनार्दन अन्यदा शरणं नास्ति त्वमेव शरणं मम तस्मात् कारुण्यभावेन रक्ष रक्ष जनार्दन अनन्तकोटि प्रदक्षिण नमस्काराञ्जलिं समर्पयामि हरिः ओम् अग्निमीले पुरोहितं यज्ञस्य देवमृद्युजं ओदारं रत्नदातमं हरिः ओम् इडेत्तूर्जेत्वा वाजवस्तो वाजवस्तदेवो वस्य विदात् प्रार्पयतु श्रेष्ठतमाय कर्मणे हरिः ओम् अग्नायागि भीतये गृणानो अभ्यदादये निगोदातस्य परिगिषि हरिः ओम् सन्नो देवीरभिट्टय आपो भवन्तु भीतये सयोरभिष्णवन्दुनः हरिः ओम् दादौदरिषपूर्णमासो व्याख्य श्यामः प्रातरग्निहोत्रं मुत्वा अन्यमाहं ऋणीय अग्नेरन्वा दधातु अगतस्सोऽन्यमग्निं प्रणयति आज्यं पुरुषमीडानं पुरुहूतं पुरस्कृतं परमेकाक्षरं ब्रह्म व्यक्ताव्यक्तकं सनातनम् स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्तां न्यायेन मार्गेण महिं महीषा गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ता सुखिनो भवन्तु सर्वे जना सुखिनो भवन्तु नारायणाय विद्महे वासुदेवाय धीमहि तन्नो विष्णु प्रचोदयात् बोलो श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामी की जय
We will chant Ashtakshari mantra for 8 times. Om Namo Narayanaya. 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 Now it's time for us to hear the Satyanarayana Katha. Now we will first hear chapter 1. Once upon a time, the great Shaunak Muni and 88,000 other rishis assembled in the forest called Naimisharanya. Maharishi Suta, who was well versed in narrating the Puranas, was also present at that time. Shaunak Muni asked Maharishi Suta, "O Maharishi, please tell us about a way by which mankind can attain salvation." Maharishi Suta answered, "Even the great sage Narada asked Lord Vishnu the very same question." Listen very carefully as I am going to tell you what Lord Vishnu himself told Narada Muni. During his travels to the various worlds, sage Narada came to visit the earth. There he saw people suffering in their lives due to their past karmas. Narada Muni was moved by witnessing such suffering and thought of Lord Narayana, who is ever so kind and full of love for his devotees. So sage Narada traveled to Vaikunta, the abode of Lord Narayana. There he saw the beautiful sight of Lord Vishnu adorned with his conch, discus, mace, and lotus in his four hands and with a garland around his neck. Narada spoke humbly, "O Supreme Lord, the Savior of the destitute and the troubled, I surrender at thy feet." Lord Vishnu asked, "Dear Narada, why you have come here? Tell me what is troubling you and what you want, and I will fulfill all your wishes." Narada replied, "O Bhagwan, people on the earth are suffering in many ways as a result of their own past sinful deeds. Please bestow thy grace and tell me how they can be of help and how to end their suffering." Lord Narayana spoke to Narada as follows: "Narada, because of your kindness and your wish to help mankind, you have asked me these questions, and because of my kinship with you, I will give you the answers. Mankind can be rid of all its sufferings by observing the Satyanarayana Vrata. This Vrata, when performed according to religious rites, will bring happiness, peace of mind, and prosperity in this life and salvation beyond." On hearing these words, Narada was filled with joy and said, "O Lord, in your infinite grace, please tell me the details involved in observing this Vrata and the fruits and positive effects of such observance." Lord Narayana replied, "On a full moon day, one must gather one's friends and relatives, perform the puja in the evening with devotion, and offer fruit, ghee, milk, curd, butter, wheat, flour, sugar, honey to the Lord. After the puja is finished, the story of Lord Satyanarayana must be read to one and all present for the puja. After reading the story, the prasada must be distributed to all. The assembled Brahmins must also be fed and gift must be given to them. If the puja is thus performed, it will bring fulfillment of one's wishes, particularly in this Kali Yuga. This will bring contentment to the devotees observing the puja. Thus ended the first chapter of Satyanarayana Katha in the Revakanta of Skanda Purana. नारायणाय विद्महे वासुदेवाय धीमहि तन्नो विष्णु प्रचोदयात्. बोलो श्री सत्यनारायण भगवान की जय. Now let us hear the chapters 2. Maharishi Suda continued his narration. "O learned rishis, let me tell you stories about devotees who performed this puja in the past and achieved greatness. Once there lived a poor Brahmin in the city of Kashi. Plagued by his hunger, he used to wander around every day. Lord Vishnu, who is all in all kindness, appeared before the poor Brahmin in the form of an old man and asked, 'Why are you wandering around aimlessly?' The poor Brahmin replied, 'Sir, I am a very poor Brahmin, unable to bear the pangs of hunger. I wander around begging for my alms. If you know a way to help me out of my misery, pray, tell me please.' Whereupon Lord Vishnu, who was in the guise of an old man, said, 'O Brahmin, Lord Satyanarayana bestows his grace on his devotees and removes their sorrows. So you should also observe this vrata and reap its benefit.' Lord Vishnu then explained the details of the puja to the poor Brahmin and disappeared. The poor Brahmin immediately resolved to perform the Satyanarayana puja. After a sleepless night, He got up early in the morning and went to beg for his alms. His mind was fixed only on the puja. That day he got a lot of money with which he bought the necessary materials as prescribed to him earlier by the Lord himself and performed the puja with his friends and relatives. With the grace of Lord Satyanarayana, he was able to come out of his poverty and led a contented life. He continued performing this puja every month on a Purnima day and finally attained salvation. The assembled rishis asked, who were listening to the Maharishi, O great one, please tell us in detail who else performed this puja. Maharishi Sudha then continued his narration. One day, when the poor Brahmin from Kashi was performing the puja, a woodcutter entered his house and asked for water. Seeing the puja being performed, the woodcutter inquired about the puja and its purpose. The Brahmin from Kashi, who was now prosperous due to the Lord Satyanarayana's grace, spoke as follows. This is called the Satyanarayana Pooja. Anyone who performs this puja will get riches. I myself have been bestowed with wealth. The woodcutter was delighted to hear about this puja. He learned the proper way to perform the puja, ate the prasad, and went on his way. With the Lord Satyanarayana in his thought, he resolved in his mind that he will perform the puja with whatever money he made that day. He went to the area in the city where rich people lived and sold all the wood for a good profit. With that money, he bought ghee, sugar, honey, butter, curd, milk, flour, and fruits and performed the puja properly and with devotion, along with his friends and relatives. By the Lord Satyanarayana's grace, he too acquired enormous wealth and lived comfortably and attained salvation. Thus ended chapter 2 of the Satyanarayana Katha in the Revakanta of the Skanda Purana. Bolo Sri Satyanarayana Bhagwan ki jai. नारायणाय विद्महे वासुदेवाय धीमहि तन्नो विष्णु प्रचोदयात् बोलो श्री सत्यनारायण भगवान की जय. Let us hear about chapter 3. Maharishi Sutta continued, O best of ascetic, I will tell you yet another story. Long time ago, there lived a wise king named Alkamuka. He had mastered all his senses and always spoke the truth. He went to the temple every day and gave gifts to the learned Brahmins. His lotus-faced wife was a pure and pious woman. One day, the royal couple was performing the Satyanarayana Puja on the banks of river Bhadrashila. At that time, a merchant called Sadhu sailed by on a boat full of merchandise. Seeing the king performing the puja, Sadhu stopped the boat, got off, and addressed the king humbly. O king, would you kindly tell me what you are doing with such devotion and concentration? The king replied, O Sadhu, I have no children. In order that I may be blessed with children, I am worshipping the Almighty Lord Satyanarayana. On hearing this, Sadhu said to the king, softly and with respect, O king, kindly let me know how to perform the puja. I would also like to observe the same vrata, as I too have no children. The king proceeded to give the sadhu, the merchant, all the details about the performing the puja. Sadhu returned home happily and told his wife about his encounter with the king and informed her that he has resolved to perform the Satyanarayana Puja after a child is born. By the divine grace, Sadhu's wife Leelavati conceived a child, and in due course a beautiful daughter was born to Sadhu and his wife. They named their daughter as Kalavati. Sadhu did not perform the puja after the daughter's birth, and Leelavati dutifully reminded him about his promise to perform the puja. Sadhu said he will perform the puja once his daughter Kalavati got married. Sadhu then put the whole matter out of his mind and carried on with his work and daily life. In the meantime, Kalavati grew up and blossomed into a lovely girl. Sadhu sent out word to find a suitable groom for his daughter. One of his messenger found a young and handsome boy from a Vaishya family from Kanchananagar. Sadhu found the boy to be a suitable match for his beautiful daughter Kalavati. He celebrated his daughter's wedding with a great pomp and show. But unfortunately, Sadhu completely forgot about his promise to perform the Satyanarayana Puja, for which he was soon to learn a big lesson about the importance of keeping serious promises, especially ones that are related to the kind and all-knowing Lord Satyanarayana. One day, Sadhu set out on a business trip with his son-in-law. He stopped to trade in the city of Ratnapura, which was ruled by King Chandraketu. Then events started to unfold as per the will of Lord Satyanarayana. Some thieves robbed the King Chandraketu's treasury and were running away. The king's soldiers gave them a hot pursuit. The frightened chief threw all the things they had stolen from the palace near Sadhu and his son-in-law. The king's soldier found the stolen goods near Sadhu and his son-in-law and arrested them and brought them before the king. Lord Satyanarayana's Maya was in full force by now. Without proper questioning, the king ordered that Sadhu and his son-in-law be chained and thrown into prison. Again, because of the Maya of the Lord, no one paid attention to what Sadhu had to say in his own defense. King Chandraketu's soldiers had also confiscated all the merchandise of Sadhu and his son in law. Meanwhile, at his hometown, some robbers broke into Sadhu's house and stole all the valuables. Sadhu's family therefore lost all the possessions. One day, due to extreme hunger, Kalavati left the house and wandered around looking for food. She arrived at a house where Satyanarayana Pooja was being performed. When the puja was finished, she gladly accepted and ate the prasad that was handed over to her. Leelavati asked her daughter where she had been, and Kalavati narrated her experience about Satyanarayana Puja in some Brahmin's house. Leelavati remembered her husband's promise about performing the puja. She herself resolved to observe the vrata. She assembled her relatives and friends, performed the puja, and prayed that he forgives all the sins committed by her family. The magnanimous Lord was pleased with Leelavati's prayer. He appeared in King Chandraketu's dream and ordered him to release Sadhu and his son in law as they were really innocent. Lord Satyanarayana also warned that the king must follow the orders, or else he will face terrible consequences and risk of even losing his kingdom and his family. Next morning, King Chandraketu informed his counselors about his dream and ordered that two merchants be free. Sadhu and his son in law stood before the king in fright, but the king asked for their forgiveness for his mistake and gave them large gift and also returned their merchandise his soldiers as confiscated from them. The king then bade farewell to Sadhu and his son in law. Thus ended the third chapter of Satyanarayana Katha in the Revakanta of Skanda Purana. Bolo Sri Satyanarayana Bhagavan ki jai. नारायणाय विद्महे वासुदेवाय धीमहि तन्नो विष्णु प्रचोदयात् बोलो श्री सत्यनारायण भगवान की जय. Now it's time to hear chapter 4. Sadhu and his son-in-law loaded their boat with the riches given to them by the king and sailed homeward. Sadhu's earnest with respect to devotion to the Lord in the past was still questionable, and he was therefore subject to testing by the Lord if he so desired. Lord Satyanarayana appeared before Sadhu in the form of an ascetic and asked him what he was carrying in his boat. Without realizing that ascetic was indeed Lord Satyanarayana himself, Sadhu mockingly said, "You ascetic, were you thinking of stealing my things from my boat? We do not have any valuables in the boat anyway. All we have are some leaves and creepers." The ascetic Sadhu told the ascetic told Sadhu, "So be it," and departed in great haste and stood by the shore. When Sadhu went back to the boat, he discovered to his horror that the boat was really filled with the leaves and creepers, as he had falsely told to the ascetic. Sadhu fainted upon seeing this sight, but he was revived by his son in law, who thoughtfully said, "This must be the curse of the ascetic. He must be a mystic. Let us go and ask for his forgiveness." The two merchants went to the seashore where the ascetic was meditating. They fell at his feet and repeatedly begged for their forgiveness. Pleased by Sadhu's action, the kind and magnanimous Lord Satyanarayana said, "Sadhu, do not weep. You suffered because you broke your promise again and again." On hearing this, Sadhu again prayed to Lord Satyanarayana, "O Lord, even Brahma and other devas cannot comprehend your form completely. How can I, with my limited knowledge, comprehend your various forms? I pray to you according to my limited knowledge. Please help me. Your, please show me your true form and bless me." Upon hearing his prayer, Lord was pleased and granted his wishes and restored Sadhu's merchandise on the boat and disappeared. Then the two merchants then joyfully sailed homeward. On reaching their hometown, they sent a messenger to their respective wives so as to inform them about their safe arrival. At that time, Leelavati and Kalavati were in the middle of performing the Satyanarayana Puja. Leelavati finished the puja properly and asked Kalavati also to do so as well. Leelavati then hurried to the shore to meet her husband. In her eagerness, Kalavati rushed through the puja and ran to meet her husband without even taking her prasad. This action of Kalavati was clearly an indicator of her lack in sincerity in the puja, which to her was a lower priority when compared to meeting her husband. Kalavati learned her lesson quickly. Without any reason, due to the Lord's Maya, Kalavati saw the boat had capsized and her husband had been drowned. Kalavati started weeping with great sorrow at the turn of events. Sadhu was at a loss to know what to do, but still wanted to help his daughter Kalavati. He announced that he will be performing the Satyanarayana Pooja and prayed to Lord Satyanarayana again and again. At this juncture, Lord Satyanarayana, who is the savior of sinners, was very pleased, and his voice was heard to say, O Sadhu, your daughter did not eat prasad and thus did not finish the puja properly in her haste to see her husband. Let her go home, take the prasad, and return. With full faith in the Lord, Kalavati, who was remorseful by this time, rushed home, took her prasad, and ate it with great devotion. When she returned to the seashore, she found her husband back into the boat. Then Sadhu returned home happily with his wife, daughter, and the son in law. Since then, Sadhu never failed to perform the Satyanarayana Puja every full moon day. With the Lord's grace, he too enjoyed all the comforts in this world and finally attained salvation. Thus ended chapter 4 of Satyanarayana Katha in the Revakanta of Skanda Purana. Bolo Sri Satyanarayana Bhagavan ki jai. नारायणाय विद्महे वासुदेवाय धीमहि तन्नो विष्णु प्रचोदयात् बोलो श्री सत्यनारायण भगवान की जय. Now let us hear the last chapter 5. Maharishi Suta continued. Once there was a king called Tungadvaja who underwent a lot of misery after refusing the prasad from the Satyanarayana Puja. One day after hunting, he was sitting under a shady tree. Some cowards were performing the Satyanarayana Puja nearby. The king, in his vanity, refused the prasad they offered. When he reached his palace, he found that his kingdom, his 100 sons, his wealth, and everything were got destroyed. Then it occurred to him that Lord Satyanarayana was probably displeased with him. He went back to the cowards, prostrated himself before the Lord Satyanarayana's altar, and performed the puja with great devotion. Lord Satyanarayana showed his blessings, and the king regained everything he had lost earlier. He too lived happily and reached Vaikuntha after his death. Maharishi Suta said, O holy men, I have narrated to you the Satyanarayana Katha, which was originally told by Lord Vishnu to sage Narada. By observing this vrata, mankind can attain salvation. In this Kali Yuga, observance of the vrata can lead to gratification of one's wishes. Maharishi Suta concluded his narration by telling the assembled rishis what kind of blessings were given by the Lord to the people in this above stories. The poor Brahmin of Kashi was reborn as Sudama, the friend of Lord Krishna, who was blessed by Lord Krishna with prosperity and salvation. The woodcutter was reborn as Guha, who devotedly served Lord Rama and attained salvation. King Alkamuka was reborn as Dasratha, the father of Lord Rama himself. Sadhu was reborn as King Mayuradhwaja, who won the test Lord Krishna administered to him by offering his body to be cut into two halves and offered for charity. King Tungadvaja was reborn as Manu, the writer of laws, who gave to mankind the code of conduct of righteousness. Thus ended chapter 5 on narration of Maharishi Suta, after which Shaunak and other rishis returned to their respective places. Bolo Sri Satyanarayana Bhagavan ki jai. Narayanaya Vidmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. Bolo Sri Satyanarayana Bhagavan ki jai.
Om Ajaryaha Prarthanam Guryad. Om Haste Bhutpamadhaya. Namaste Satyadevesha. Namaste Satyadevesha. Namaste Karunagara. Namaste Satyavagisha. Namaste Satyasuprabho. Satyanarayanam Devam. Vandeham Kamadam Vibham. Leelaya Vidadam Vishwam. Yena Dasme Namo Namaha. Satyanarayana Swamine Namaha. अनन्तकोटि प्रार्थनाञ्जलिं समर्पयामि। ॐ येदाबन्धो वै देवानागुं सभाः तजेवास्मै शवान् प्रयच्छन्ति तजेनं पुनस्व वन्दे राज्याय देवशूराज भवति। नारायणाय विद्महे वासुदेवाय धीमहि तन्नो विष्णु इदं विष्णुर्विचक्रमे त्रेधानि ददे पदं समूढमस्य भागुं विष्णोरराडमसि विष्णो पृष्ठमसि विष्णो स्नप्त्रेहस्तो विष्णो स्यूरसि विष्णोर्ध्रुवमसि वैष्णवमसि विष्णवे त्वा। सत्यनारायण स्वामिने नमः। पंचमुखदीपं दर्शयामि। बोलो श्री सत्यनारायण स्वामी की जय।